Hello and welcome back to What Is This Weapon? I am Jonathan as always. This, however, is something a bit special, even by our standards. And it is secreted currently in a black velvet pouch with gold trim and green interior. It's this absolutely astonishing piece. Now, if you were here for our Reloaded exhibition back in the summer, you saw this on display. That was actually for the first time. This thing had been in the collection for many years. So this was a very obvious fit for the Reloaded exhibition. It was all about decorative pieces, made, purchased, owned for different reasons. So everything from flintlocks owned by the Empress of Russia through to more modern firearms such as this, which I'm going to tell you more about in a moment. First of all, the gun that is hidden under quite a lot of decoration on this thing. Let's get the pouch out of the way and put this on a stand because it's actually heavier, quite a lot heavier than it ought to be, as a Smith & Wesson Model 60-9, which is the gun that is underneath all of this. So I thought the best way to give you an idea of just how much work has been done to this was to grab another Model 60 from the collection. Now this is a -4, so it's an earlier iteration of this. This is a -9, and the barrel length is different, therefore, and the sights as well, and a couple of other minor points. But this is the same basic model, the Model 60. This happens to have the molded Hogue type grip. This clearly doesn't have that, it has much fancier grips. The frame is identical, nearly. It's the Model 60 frame, and it's the 357 Magnum length frame. When the Model 60 was first introduced in 1965, it was exclusively 38 Special. By the time this was made in 1996, so our star piece here was made and decorated in 1996, the cylinder has been lengthened and therefore the frame slightly stretched as well. It's a J frame. Some of you will already know that Smith & Wesson revolver sizes are dictated by letter-coded frames. So Dirty Harry's classic Model 29 is a K frame, for example. These guys are J frames, so what you can think of as, I think it was described as a pocket-sized frame originally, but you need some pretty big pockets for this thing. Maybe a carry size would be the modern way to describe it, or a compact, something like that. And you can see it is quite slim. You know, the revolvers always have the cylinder width to worry about, but apart from that, it's quite a slim, medium-sized, fairly wieldy frame. And this is one of the classic late 60s, 70s, 80s police-style, self-defense style revolvers. Did the job for 6 shots. 38 Special, as I say, or 357 Magnum. Now, the Model 60 was also Smith & Wesson's first stainless steel revolver, which is significant in that respect. And you can see this is in ordinary, I guess, brushed finish stainless steel. Already looks quite nice. One of the features of this is that it's polished to an extremely high shine, although you can barely see that underneath all of the other decoration. But for example, we can see the recoil shields here on the back, behind the cylinder, and the back edge of the cylinder are just super shiny stainless steel. And there are a few other surfaces that are left undecorated, like the crown. So the crown of the muzzle is still shiny. And the hammer, the back of the hammer, not the spur, because the spur is still checkered, but most of the hammer is very highly polished stainless. And the inside of the trigger guard underneath this molding here, which you could barely see, is left highly polished. So first step is to highly polish what you've got and then worry about the rest of it. So we'll put this away. This is really just a sort of reference example. I might weigh the two for reasons that will become, well, probably are already apparent to you. This stuff's going to weigh a fair bit just to see what the weight difference is. But if I do that, bear in mind that the example we have has a longer barrel, so it's not going to be a direct comparison. Maybe I'll look up the book weight for you as well. So the Dash 9 denotes a 2 1/8 inch barrel, this length barrel, and fixed sights. So let's show you those right now. Now, even fixed would imply normal. These aren't normal sights. So just to get into a bit of the diamond decoration right now, we have these square cut, or baguette cut, I think it is, diamonds inlaying that front sight from the front all the way over down the ramp of the sight. So your fixed front sight is pretty spectacularly different. And then even the rear sight, which doesn't feature diamond decoration, is engraved with an E. Now, I haven't mentioned the maker of this thing yet. That's Edward Evans. He was a London-based goldsmith at the time in the 90s. And I believe that initial is the closest thing we have on this to a maker's mark. Traditional, of course, on firearms, put a maker's mark on there. Not really by this time. He's obviously not the maker of the gun, but he is the project leader and lead goldsmith. Other guys were involved, I believe, in engraving and doing work with Edward on this. But this is very much his baby, and it's E for Evans, I believe, on this rear sight plate. But if you were going to use this thing for real, you've still got a practical pair of sights there. But even they are highly decorated. And just a final point on the sights, just to kind of make the point that we have not only a highly decorated revolver, but a Magnum revolver. We have inlaid in blue enamel, a ground, and then on top of that, the words 357 Magnum. So both the Dash 9 and the Dash 10, speaking about the base revolver again, they introduced a few different technical features. So just briefly, we have a hammer that is flat-faced with no firing pin on it because we've introduced a floating firing pin in the frame. That's a modern feature that was coming in at the time in the 90s, and it was added to the Dash 9 and the Dash 10, which is the same revolver with adjustable sights and a 3-inch barrel. That's probably the most significant change. The cylinder latch was changed to a process called metal injection molding, a bit cheaper, but not on this gun. This one has been replaced with a variant of the Smith & Wesson cylinder latch I've seen on other models. We have a 617 that has that shape, that quite distinctive shape. So I'm guessing they just chose a forged and possibly hand finished, I don't know, but a higher end component to replace the lower end component that had been added to these new revolvers. I think that's an interesting little detail. And it's set with more diamonds. So you can't go very far on this piece without finding more diamonds, and that captures one of those features. That's obviously how the cylinder opens, and on a Smith & Wesson it's a push, and we flip out our cylinder, which brings me to our only other feature of the Dash 9 and the Dash 10, which is the cylinder stop lug. We can actually quickly show you on the older Model 60 here. That's the stop lug, the round feature there, that's set into the frame. It's a separate component. Well, on the Dash 9 and Dash 10, that is incorporated into the frame itself. And on this one, it's also decorated, but it's a feature of the frame. So those are just the changes to the Dash 9, Dash 10. This is the Dash 9 with all of that decoration that we've already started to explore. So what else do we have? Well, if popping that cylinder open again, just to better show off we can do a bit of a revolve. Don't want to put any extra wear on this, but that does allow me to show you one of the decorative features on this. So we know there are diamonds and there are more to show you, but the cylinder and the whole frame, so we've highly polished the whole gun, then these craftsmen have added something called engine turning all over the exposed surfaces before they then put on the other stuff. And that's most evident, I think, on the cylinder. It's called engine turning, and it's a series of geometric features that are a cutting wheel tool is applied to the surface and creates a sort of interlocking geometric pattern of whichever style the decorator or the customer wants. So there's one version of that on here that's almost like a sort of they're kind of chevrons. It's almost like an MC Escher kind of effect, or a magic eye if you're old like me. So the cylinder has one decorative style. The frame has a different style, and we can see that most evidently in front of the cylinder. And that kind of blends in to the engine turning that's in the flutes in the cylinder, more of a sort of wave pattern, like a sine wave. If I get my stupid finger out of the way, you'll be able to see it. So the frame has a different pattern. Guilloche is the traditional term for this engine turning decorative process, and it was done centuries ago on various different decorative objects. More than anything else, this is what you would call, I think, applied art. It's very detailed, skilled bits of craftsmanship applied to an object you're going to use. My understanding of applied art, anyway. We then have, so the wave pattern is repeated on the dust cover. As we show you this in some nice beauty shots, you'll pick this up without me pointing out every bit of it. But the chevrons and the swirls are the main features of this. Sorry, the waves. And then we have a slightly different wave pattern on the grips. Now this looks like this is some sort of solid blue pair of grip scales. It's not. What we have there are added a solid metal grip that is engine turned. So that's steel, more stainless steel that wouldn't normally be on the gun, adds really to the weight. And then that's been engine turned into waves as well. And then the blue enamel over the top. And then the other major decorative features, which are white gold and platinum. And perhaps you can play the game of which bits are white gold and which bits are platinum, because this is kind of overwhelming and I don't know which are which. But we have these, I think they're called swags and swirls, these foliage type features that are themselves each set with diamonds of a different cut. Pave cut, I think it is the technical term. Forgive me if I'm getting this jewellery stuff wrong. And so those are added over the top of the grips, around the front strap, the back strap, just all over the place. The trigger guard, there's a huge moulding covering the trigger guard entirely. We've got bands with diamonds inset into them, running up in front of that engine turning I showed you, along the barrel, the barrel and its integral shroud. So the shroud is just engine turned, as is the ejector rod, but everything else is diamonds and either white gold or platinum set. So we have 400 grams of white gold and platinum added to this thing, which adds even more to the weight. This is a really hefty piece for its relative size. And we'll just give you some time to look at the various diamond, gold and platinum settings on this thing, and we'll try and capture it in its full glory. I'm sure it's not to everyone's taste, but I think even those of us who probably wouldn't carry this around can appreciate the sheer level of skill that's gone into this. Incidentally, a lot of the screws are covered with the decoration. Not all. And the one there that isn't is engraved decoratively as well. The sort of thing we see, and the one on the cylinder latch as well. We see that with antique firearms as well, where they will lovingly decorate the screws so that they're less distracting. You're not distracted by the engineering of the piece, you're looking more at the decorative features of it. We even have a setting pinned or peened onto the trigger there, almost covering it like a trigger shoe, with striations down the front for grip, but then down the sides more diamond settings. So it's just, the more you look, the more you see this thing is absolutely encrusted with decoration. Now the final thing to show you, or for me to blether about anyway, is on the butt cap here. We have these ringed settings of diamonds again. In the middle is some really nice foliate leaf type engraving, just separating the diamond settings, which I think is nice. You could have done another ring of diamonds, but we've got engraving there. you can see another pattern of engine turning, almost a kind of propeller blade effect, which we hopefully can catch under the enamel, because there's another enamel cap there. And then the kind of elephant in the room, for me, at least when I first encountered this, is this gold fleur-de-lis set into the butt cap. Immediately, I assumed, and others did, that maybe this was some speculative gift for our Prince of Wales, now King Charles III, of course. No, it's not that. And that brings us to the how this came into the collection and a little bit of the lore. So this is actually a replacement, and that's a replacement before it left Evans's ownership, and he was in a bit of a difficult situation. So this was displayed in the window of the well-known gunmaker's Ray Ward on Cadogan Street in London in 1990s, or until late 1997, by which point the Firearms Amendment Act had come into play, and so this had to be surrendered. There was a sort of buyback scheme that we've mentioned before in this series. The museum collection was able to receive quite a few of those examples to preserve them. This is one of the more notable pieces that was compulsorily purchased by Sussex Police, who donated it to the Royal Armouries at the end of that. So what used to be on the butt cap of this revolver was yet another diamond. So this was a sizable diamond of, I don't know what cut, but this was going to push the value of the thing even higher, or had done, I guess, already. But rather than try to negotiate for more money from the authorities, Mr. Evans decided to remove that and replace it with something that he had in his workshop, which happened to be a gold fleur-de-lis. So never purporting to belong to or been made for the then Prince of Wales. It becomes a little story that goes with this piece, but it enabled him to finish it back up again, so it's a complete piece. Now that leads to the question of value. I'm sure one of the major questions you have about this is, how much is this thing worth? Well, insurance value isn't massively indicative of market value, but suffice to say, this is worth anything between £100,000 today, very low end estimate, and 200, £250,000, maybe even more if this thing went to auction and there were two rich bidders going against each other. It could easily be £250,000, this thing. It's very, very rare. It's extremely lavishly decorated, and the value of the gold, the platinum, and the diamonds alone puts it up toward the £100,000 today. And as I say, realistic value of it as an art piece, as a collector's firearm, is well beyond that. So the other thing you're probably wondering is, what if I were to load this with 6 rounds and fire it? Well, I wouldn't do that, because for obvious reasons. But it was actually fired. So 30 rounds went through this thing for testing. Well, first of all, proof or test firing at Smith & Wesson, of course. Everything gets fired before it's shipped out. And then to establish that the decorative settings were secure and weren't going to drop out if someone did stoke this thing up and fire it, 30 rounds were put through it. Now, I assume that's 38 special, but for all I know, it could have been at least some 357 Magnum rounds, and whichever they were, and 38 special is still significant recoil-wise. That being the major concern, by the way, recoil displacing a diamond. Can you imagine? One of these goes pinging off into the distance. Good luck finding it. But no, 30 rounds went through it, and it survived it all, as you see today. Now, although some of you hopefully saw this in our Reloaded exhibition, although you've missed it there are, well, a couple of silver linings. Firstly, that the space is being worked on right now for our major new exhibition, Gladiators, Heroes of the Colosseum, which opens summer next year. You might have heard a bit of buzz about that already. It's going to be pretty amazing, albeit nothing to do with this type of object. If you do like or are fascinated by this type of object, we have 2 other highly decorated pistols on display at the Tower of London. So if you find yourself visiting there, or you want to go there for a day out. Major bonus is that, well, everything in the White Tower that's arms and armor is our stuff, and there's a display, treasures, as it were, including a decorated, again, diamonds and enamel, SIG P226 self-loading pistol, and also a Smith & Wesson 5.86, and our custom commissioned Tiffany revolver with gold and brown finish. And they're all on display there. And there's even a P90 for some reason. So there's some surprising stuff there. Well, not anymore, because I've told you, but for the tourists that visit and don't expect decorated and even modern firearms, there are some there for you. But I hope you've enjoyed this. Wanted to share this one with those of you who didn't see it on display. It's pretty impressive. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed that one. Don't forget to do the usual YouTube stuff, like, comment, subscribe. All three is great. You can also donate to us via the link in the description if you'd like to do that. And with Christmas coming, we have, well, we always have our online shop, but with Christmas coming, you might want to check it out. There's the new range of windlass swords with Matt Easton that we've collaborated with him to create another set of swords that you might like to check out as well. Whatever you do, check us out again here on the Royal Armouries channel next week.